Hi fashion lovers, you're welcome to another interesting video. In today's tutorial, we are going to be learning how to cut and sew this perfect bustier top. So this bustier top was cut directly on the fabric and there is no pattern attached to it. So it was cut directly on the fabric and it's very easy and simple to make. So if you're interested in learning how this was made, kindly watch this video to the end. Let's get started. To get started, I have folded my fabric and I'm drafting the front part first. So I attached an interfacing hairstay to my fabric, and that is why I am cutting or drafting on the right part of the fabric. So I attached an interfacing on the fabric to give it to make it stable, or to give it some stability, and I won't be able to mark a chalk on the wrong side because of the interfacing. It won't be visible, so I decided to draft it on the front part or on the right part. I hope you understood. So I went ahead to mark 1 inch as the starting point line. So you have to determine how many inches you are going to be coming down, because it's like off shoulder. How many inches do you want it to be? You can come down by 5, 6 or 7. For me, I'm coming down by 6 inches. So I'm going to place my tape on 6 inches. On that starting point line, you place your 6 inches on the starting point line, meaning that you are cutting off 6 inches. And as you place your 6 inches, you want to mark your chest line. My chest line is 8.5. The bust point I'm making use of is 10 inches. The under bust is 13 inches. The waistline is 15.5. And then the full length is 22 inches. And this top stopped on the full length. So I'll go ahead and make an horizontal line, as you can see. So I have the starting point, the chest line, the bust point, the under bust, the waistline, and the full length. So on the under bust now, I will mark half of my nipple to nipple measurement plus half an inch. So my nipple to nipple measurement is 7 inches divided by 2 is going to give me 3.5. So instead of marking 3.5, I marked 4 because we are going to be because we are cutting this directly on the fabric. So if it were to be pattern, we are going to use the 3.5, but because we are cutting directly on the fabric, I marked 4 inches. I added half inch to it. So I marked on the bust point, under bust, waistline, and the length. So towards the center front, I marked 1 inch, and towards the side front, I marked 1.5 inches. So this is 1.5 inches, but on the center front here, so towards here, which is the center front, I took a dart of 1 inch on the under bust, waistline, and the full length, and towards this part, which is the side front, I marked 1.5 inches. And the reason why the dart there is bigger is because our bust is fuller towards the side seam. So you want to use your straight ruler and connect from under bust, waistline to the length. So from the bust point, you come down by 3/4 of an inch, half inch. If you're a very plus size, you can use 1 inch or 1.5 inches. And then you want to keep your curved ruler and contour your under bust. Did you see that? So you keep your curved ruler and contour the under bust. So with this, you have contoured our under bust. So the next thing you want to do is on your chest or the starting point line, you also want to mark your 4 inches for the dart line that you use, and then connect with a straight line. So now we're going to be contouring the over bust. We're going to be contouring the over bust to avoid gaping. So when we contour, what I mean by contouring is tightening the over bust. So for me, I usually use 1 inch to tighten my over bust. If you are very small, you can use 0.75 inch on both sides, but for me, I used 1 inch. So I marked 1 inch on both sides. Did you see? And I'm going to use my curve ruler and connect But if you are very big, you are very busty, you can go ahead and use 1.25 or 1.5 inches on both sides. This is going to tighten, like the over bust is going to be very firm using this method. So for me, my bust is actually 35 inches, but I usually make use of 36. So I'm using 1 inch on both sides, and this is me trying to connect. Did you see? You connect in such a way that it will be ½ inch above the bust point. If you're a very plus size, you can leave it 3/4 of an inch above the bust point, or 1 inch. So did you see that? So I use 1 inch on both sides to contour the over bust, making it 2 inches. So if you are very busty, very busty, you can go ahead and make use of 1.5 inches. You can also make use of 1.25 on both sides. The goal is to tighten the over bust. So the next thing you want to do is on your chest line, you mark 1/4 of your bust circumference. On your chest line, mark 1/4 of your bust circumference. Add the dart intake on the chest line. The dart intake you have on the chest line, please add it back. Please don't replace the 2 inches you use for the bust tightening. If you want it to be firm, just add back the dart intake you have only on the chest line. Then go ahead and add 1 inch for the joining of the two sides. You're going to add 1 inch for the joining of the two sides, and then add your 2 inches for a sewing allowance. So on the under bust, I will mark 1/4 of my under bust measurement, add the 2.5 inches dart intake, and then I will add 1 inch for the joining of the center front and the side front, and then I will add 2 inches sewing allowance. On the waistline, you mark 1/4 of your waist circumference, add back your 2.5 inches for that, then add 1 inch for the joining of the center front and the side front, and then add 2 inches for the side seam allowance. On the hem part, mark 1/4 of your upper hip circumference plus the dart intake, which is 2.5, plus 1 inch for joining the center front and the side front, and 2 inches for the side seam allowance. I believe you understood what I explained. So from the upper part here, you want to make a curve like this to meet the bust line here. Did you see? You want to use your hand and make a curve like this. Did you see that? So this is very easy and simple. And then you can just come down here by 1 inch to get your neckline, depending on how deep you want the neckline to be. So this is how to get a perfect bustier, and I believe you understood to this very point. So if you're adding your allowance, add 1/4 of your measurement, add the dart intake, add 1 inch for the joining of the center front and the side front, and then add your 2 inches or 1.5 inches side seam allowance. So that is what I did. And with this, now we are done with the front part. So I will just raise this place up by 2 inches and then make a curve. So this is optional. If you want the side to be a curve, the side to be to have a curve. You can see I didn't add the hemming allowance, and the reason is because the length I use also served as also my hemming allowance. I wanted the top to be 21 inches, but I made use of 22 inches. So when you are done cutting, this is what you are going to have. So let's open it up. As you can see, I added an interfacing to it. Did you see that? I added an interfacing. So just to give this Ankara fabric stability. So this is how we are going to be joining it, and this is how it came out to be. So you're going to be cutting a wadding that will cut across the upper side to the under bust, and also that will cut across this part. Now it should cut across like this. The padding you are going to be adding for the front. Then we'll go over to the back part. So for the back part now, I've also folded my fabric into two, so I'll just keep my tape on 6 inches, which I'm using. So from that 6 inches, I will mark my shoulder to the chest line, and then waist line, and then the full length. So I'm making use of the same length for the front and the back. So this fabric is longer than the back, so that is why you can see a space at the down part of this. So I marked 8.5, which is my chest line, 15.5, which is my waistline, and the length 22 inches that I made use of for the front is the same length I'm also making use of for the back. And the reason is because I'm not adding a bust dart. So if I'm adding a bust dart, the length will be different. So I'm not adding a bust dart. So I'll just rule a line. This is my chest line, this is my waistline, and the full length, which is 22 inches. So at this point, I was meant to mark my zipper allowance, but I forgot. I was meant to mark my zipper allowance, but I forgot. So I went ahead to mark half of my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 3.5 plus half inch, 4 inches. So I marked 4 inches on the waistline, on the chest line, and on the length, and then I'll go ahead and connect like this. So I'll mark half inch on both sides on the waistline for my dart, and from the chest line I will go ahead and connect. So I marked half inch on both sides. From the chest line you connect, and I also mark the half inch on the full length, and I will just bring it down. So the dart intake I use on the back is 1 inch. It was at this point I remembered I've not taken my zipper allowance. So I went ahead to mark 1 inch for my zipper allowance. So please, if you are drafting yours, if you are cutting yours, mark your zipper allowance first before taking your dart measurement. Mark your zipper allowance first before taking the dart measurement. So on the waistline, I will go inward by 1 inch to get my center back tightening. That is to tighten my center back to remove the zipper bulge. So I went ahead on the waistline to take 1 inch, and I connected it on the nape and also on the full length. So that 1 inch that I took out, I'm going to be replacing it back. So on the waistline, you mark 1/4 of your waist measurement plus 1 inch for that, and then the 1 inch for the zipper allowance that you've taken out, you have to replace it back. Then mark the 1 inch for joining the center front and the side, the center back and the side. You're going to mark that 1 inch for joining the two, because we're going to cut it through, we're going to be cutting it out. And then you mark 2 inches for your sewing allowance. So on the hem part, you mark 1/4 of your upper hip circumference, your 1 inch for that, the 1 inch for the joining of the center front to the center back to the side back, and then 2 inches for the sewing allowance. So on the upper here, I'm going to be tightening the upper part by half inch on both sides. Did you see? By half inch on both sides. So you want to take that line straight to your waistline. Take that line straight to your waistline. So on the chest line, you want to go ahead and mark 1/4 of your bust circumference, and then 1 inch for the joining. So I did not replace the darts on the chest line because I want the back to be well tightened. So I didn't replace the dart. So I marked 1/4 of my chest bust circumference. I didn't replace the dart, so I just mark 1 inch for the joining of the center back and the side back, 1 inch for joining, and then 2 inches for my sewing allowance. And the reason is because I want the back part to be well fitted. I want it to be gripped on my body. But if you don't want like that, you can replace the dart intake. But because this is like a contouring dart, we don't need to replace it, and and that is what I did. So I went ahead to raise it up, go up by 2 inches, and curve out my back, the hem part of my bustier. So I'll just go ahead and cut it out. So I also marked out a neckline. Did you see that? I just marked out a neckline. Please bear in mind that the back part started from the chest line, so I went ahead to cut off the starting point, and then the back part is starting from the chest line. And please, as you're cutting the upper part, remember to add ½ inch on the upper part, the sewing allowance ½ inch. So we're going to go ahead and join our bustier, and this is my lining. I've also attached an interfacing to it, so I'll go ahead and cut out my lining. So this is the back part, so I'll go ahead and join the back part. The center back is looking small because I took my dart first before adding my zipper allowance, before marking my zipper allowance. So you have to mark your zipper allowance first before taking your dart. So I'll just go ahead and join the back part, the two sides now of the back. So for the front now, I've gone ahead to cut out a wadding for the front. Did you see? So I'm going to be attaching it on the center front, and I've also cut out for the back now. Did you see? So I'm going to be attaching it. This is how it's going to look. I'm going to be attaching it on the inside. Please take note of that. On the inside, like this, attach your wadding. So I'm making use of the strongest wadding, not the light wadding. So I've gone ahead to iron it out, as you can see. So I'll just go ahead and join the side to the center front, and the other side to the other side of the center front. You want to sew by the ½ inch because we added ½ inch on both sides, so you sew by the ½ inch. So after joining, this is what I have. Did you see that? The cup is now coming together. So when you open it up, this is what you're going to have. You want to notch on the under bust. Very, very important, so that part will last well. So you also want to notch around, and then go ahead and iron this out. So this is how the cup is looking. Did you see? This is how the cup is. So I've also gone ahead to join the lining for the center front like this. You also want to notch all around. So you're going to be placing your lining. The right side of your lining will face the right side of the main fabric, and then you want to go and sew on the neckline region by ½ inch, and also sew on the down part. So after you are done sewing, this is what you are going to have. So I've gone ahead to iron out everything, both my side seam. I've gone ahead to iron. So after sewing, we want to notch the upper part, which is the neckline. Notch it very well. So after that, you also want to sew the side seam by ½ inch. So this is the back part, as you can see. So I'll try to trim the neckline so that it will align together, like the back neckline. You can first of all sew the back, join the back first before you create your neckline anyhow you want it. So this is me trying to shape in the neckline I want for my back. So after doing that, I'll just go ahead and join the lining to it. Sew the upper part, sew the down part, and also the sides. So I want to use the lining and close up all the parts. So after I've done that, this is what I'm going to have. So you also want to go ahead and notch all around the back, especially on the waistline. So the next thing you want to do is on the side seam, you want to open up for the back part now. You know we use lining to close up all the parts. So you're going to be opening it up a bit so that you will turn it to the right side. So after you are done, this is what you are going to have. You just use your needle and your machine and stitch down the opening that you made. You stitch it down. You're also going to do it for the other back. So for the front as well, I'm still going to notch the waistline so that it will relax, and then I'll also notch the down part as well. So the next thing is to open the side seam like this. Open the side seam. So when you are done, this is what you are going to have. At this point, you want to go ahead and iron it out, and then with your sewing machine, you want to stitch this part, fold the allowance in and stitch, close up that part that you opened. Did you see on the side seam? Close it up. Go ahead and iron your fabric out. You can see how the curve came out, so beautiful and very nice. So you want to go ahead now and join the side seam and join the front and the back together. So you also want to place it like this on the side seam, and then sew by the remaining allowance. So we have used ½ inch to join the lining and the fabric, so we'll be left with 1.5 inches for the side sewing allowance. We added 2 inches after using ½ inch to join the front and the back. The lining and the main fabric will have 1.5 inches remaining. So you want to go ahead and sew the side seam, and after you are done sewing the side seam, you go ahead and add your zipper to the zipper allowance. You add your zipper, and we are done with this bustier. So this is the final result after I was done sewing. I've attached my zipper, and as you can see, it came out so beautiful, well fitted on my body, and there is no gaping at all. If you enjoyed this tutorial, kindly like, share and subscribe, and leave a comment for me in the comment section. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next tutorial. Till then, bye bye.